And we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris. And of course, this is my channel, Barn on 11970. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. And whether you're watching this now while it's live, days, weeks, months, or later, I hope you get something out of this video that can maybe help you in your time of crisis. Because a lot of times when people see video titles, and Sam, hello for being the first person to come in, most people, when they see video titles like this, it's not a coincidence that all of a sudden, when you're feeling a certain way, you basically find messages, images, books, whatever, friends that just happen to be there at that moment to maybe answer a question that you may not have even asked out loud. And if you can get anything from this, I'll be very happy about that, because I've had so many people over the years tell me that my videos, they just register with people in ways that sometimes they can't even express, and I mean that in a positive way. And people have always told me that, oh, your video just came right at the right moment. And my goal in this YouTube world on this channel is to get people to what I like to call understand that I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that people have this power that can gravitate things that they want, and sometimes what they don't want, based on how you feel. And I know a lot of people don't understand that or think it's crazy, and that's perfectly fine, because my videos are not for the people who don't grasp it or can't grasp it or don't have an open mind. Because, you know, you cannot convince everybody about everything in life. You lead your life the way you want to. So my videos are all geared towards those who want to try and improve their life and look at things in a better way. Because as you could see in this world, there are people fighting, people hating each other, divisions, people ganging up on one another. And it affects us all, even indirectly. And one of the biggest things I see in a lot of messages I get on this channel is people telling me how they've been depressed or how things are going really bad. And the problem in this world is so many people rely on outside influences to help them. In other words, it's never your fault. Let somebody else help you. And that can get very frustrating. And a lot of people, when they have no one to turn to, because let's face it, a lot of times when people say things like, oh, maybe you need medication or maybe you need counseling or things like that, that can run rather expensive. So not everybody can even afford that. And they'll turn to alcoholism, they'll turn to drugs, and who knows what. And a lot of times when people are alone, they use the computer as a way to reach out to people and maybe find people that have similar interests. And the first thing I want to say is that's a great start. Reaching out means you're taking that effort to say, hey, world, help me, or let me seek out something that brings me joy. And that's the first thing I want to talk about. Do things in life that bring you pleasure. Now, obviously, they can't be the wrong things. If killing animals brings you pleasure, like just cruelty, I mean, I'm not even talking about hunting. I'm talking about you just get excited about killing an animal or hurting somebody that you love or things like robbing banks. Yeah, that I'm not talking about. I'm talking about maybe if you collect coins or stamps, or maybe you have a son or daughter that you just enjoy walking in the park, or something that brings you happiness. That is the first step, because what most people seem to forget, it's great if you love the world. It's great if you do everything for everybody else. But if you don't start by loving yourself, it's never going to be enough to fill the black hole that we all have desperately waiting to be filled. Because let's face it, we all want to be loved. We all want to be liked. We all want to be appreciated for what we do. And not everybody out there is like Michael Jordan or somebody like Einstein. You know, people that are the quote-unquote extraordinary. And in this world filled with, you know, a movie star or a singer or someone quote-unquote famous being what you need to look up to, There aren't many heroes anymore. And not everybody is considered the quote-unquote beautiful people, or have the perfect body, or have millions of dollars where they can just buy everything they want and never have to worry about a meal. And that could wear a person down. When you see, even on YouTube, you're seeing all of these people with, you know, the beautiful people and the people that have everything, and they flaunt it, and they make you feel useless or not as worthy or not as important. And that's why I've always had a problem with, like, either a celebrity or a politician calling the general public, so to speak, average citizens, or your regular people. Like, somehow you're not special because you don't have the same pocketbook that they do, or you don't wear the same shoes, or your bank account is not as large as theirs. Like, that matters. And if you want to change your world for the better and get yourself back on track in life, the first thing you have to do is look deep in the mirror and find out what are things in you that you can change for the better. And I find the biggest problem that we all have is our egos. Now, we could be the nicest people in the world. Heck, you could even be Mother Teresa. You will still have an ego that every now and then it's like you have the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder, kind of whispering in your ear in both directions. And it's your free will that makes you make the decision of what route you want to go. Now, the beautiful thing about things like that is, even if you start your life on the wrong path, you can always change it. And that's one of the things I appreciate about the video I did yesterday. And it's a long video, so I can understand where most people may not have seen it. But there was an individual, and I'm not going and mentioning any names because that's not what this is about, that for some reason or another, we had a little tiff. And that was probably a year ago. And this person came onto my live channel last night and actually live in the chat room apologized. And I thought that was such an amazing thing, that it shows that even if people have differences for whatever reason, because it's not even about what it was all about, right or wrong or anything like that, you could be the cruelest, meanest, most hateful person on the planet. But then one day, you could just have an epiphany and say, you know what, I want to turn my life around and do something better. And that's one of the beautiful things I've seen in this experience of mine on YouTube, is that I've seen people over the years that for whatever reasons have had problems with my point of view or the way I do things, or heck, maybe just who I am and how I speak. And after we communicated over time, things changed for the better. So the first thing I want people to, what I like to call understand, is the first thing you have to do is look at yourself and say, what can I improve on my own without medication, without the need of lots of money? And that is the hardest step because of our egos always trying to tell us that we're number one, that we could do no wrong, that we justify everything that we do, even if it's wrong. And it doesn't allow us to be able to purify our souls, so to speak. And that could be a very difficult road. And one of the biggest things, and just to say, because I don't give advice without experiencing it myself, one of the biggest things that I had the most problem letting go with is being very defensive. Even if I was 100% right, and people were attacking me for the wrong reasons or just because it was fun, because to this day there are still people that will do that just to make themselves feel better about themselves. And for the longest time, I would feel it was my need to try and defend myself against those that have an issue with me, which meant I had anger that I wasn't letting go of. Because if I walked down the street and somebody said, I don't like the hat you're wearing, provided I was wearing a hat, I don't wear them anymore, but if I did, to just walk by and say, well, you know, don't even say anything, just keep going and not care. And one of the hardest lessons I had to learn was letting go of what other people's opinions were, especially when I know they were wrong or they were in the wrong. So we have to dig deep in ourselves. And that is the most difficult thing, because none of us ever want to admit that we have flaws. And I don't see it as flaws. I view it as things that we need to improve. Because if you see it in a positive note, you could see it as, oh, you're not trying to beat yourself down or point out all your faults. It's to realize what you are doing could be better. And that could mean your love life. That could mean the people that you associate with. That could be the way you treat your fellow coworkers, or even how you treat yourself. So the biggest step and the hardest step is looking within yourself and seeing what you can do. And the best part is, once you start to see those little things your ego is trying to hide, and you try and improve them a little bit at a time, things get more positive in your life. The problem is, most people, and we all do this, I've done it, you've done it, we've all done it, where we'll try and do something new and fail, and then say, oh, well, I tried, and give up. And that's the worst thing to do. True strength is not trying to keep yourself from ever falling down, because that's impossible. You're going to fall down and even get knocked down. True strength is knowing there will be a time that you will be tested. You will be knocked down. You will maybe even trip over your own self, but have the courage to get up over and over and over again. And that's why even people like Michael Jordan said things like, you will miss 100% of the shots you do not take. And I want people to see, at least on my channel, the very few people that get access or care enough to listen, I want you to see for yourself that true strength comes from within. And you will radiate that change to the point where you don't have to say a word and people will know it. And Lala is, I like that name, says it true. Hi, it is hard to take a real look in the mirror and harder not to. That is so true. Because you could look at this day and age with everybody taking selfies every 5 minutes, with everybody making videos where it's all about, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing. I can juggle 6 balls, or I can flip my bike upside down, or I can play a prank on somebody. It's all about look at me, me, me. Instead of that person looking inside the me, which is you. Because we all think, oh, this'll pass. And that is the worst thing to do, because it's like holding toxins in your body. The longer it's there, the more damage it creates. So you have to, if you want better change, if you want to improve your life, if you want to get back on the track you may have once been on, because sometimes you'll get yourself on your track only to be distracted, or other people pushing you off, or you just lose your ground and you fall back off again. Don't defeat yourself. Don't beat yourself up. These things are the true test of true strength. It's like somebody that might have been an alcoholic, and one day they decide, you know what, I don't want to drink anymore because I don't like the person I am when I drink. And after a couple of months, they're proud of themselves, they do some work, and then all of a sudden, they're tempted and they have another drink again. Or maybe they fall right back onto the wagon, or off the wagon. I don't know how it's really supposed to be. Sometimes you're going to fail. And one of the biggest things I want to teach people on this channel is look at failure as an opportunity that you no longer have to take and you can go in a different direction. Now, what do I mean by that? It's like you being in a room with 2 doors. One leads out of that room. And one, when you open the door, is a brick wall, which will make you unable to leave the room. Now, if your goal is to leave that room, and you open the door, and there's a brick wall, well, like in life, that situation of trying to get out of the room, you've failed. Now, if you just sit down and cry, and say, woe is me, does that help you in any way to get out of that room, which was the ultimate goal? It does not. So, in essence, you have failed. But failure does not mean the ending. In other words, That failure taught you to not have to go in that direction and open that one door. And you look to the other side and see the other door and say, well, that must be the exit out of here. And you go over to that door, open it up, and there is your exit. The problem most people have is they give up after they fail for fearing that failure is the end. Now, you can have a room with 4 doors. 3 of the 4 doors have that brick wall. Again, you can open the first 3 doors only to find brick walls behind all 3, and you have now failed 3 times. But does that mean that is the end? It only is the end if you lay down and say, I give up. I tried once, I failed. So I tried again, I failed. I even got up and tried again, and for the 3rd time, and that's the last time, I give up, I failed. But again, if you look at it from a bigger perspective, the failures are saying you no longer have to use those options. Because if you kept opening the same door over and over again, that would be really silly if you think about it. Thinking that maybe this time, if I pray hard enough, or if I wish hard enough, or I think hard enough, I'll open that door that originally had a brick wall, and maybe it will magically disappear. But yet, people do that over and over again with their life choices. That they'll try and do the same thing over and over again. Like they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But if you look at that scenario where there's now 4 doors and only 1 can lead you out of that room, it does not matter if you fail 3 times. What matters is you decided to continue forward until you succeeded. And in this world where people seem to be so overly sensitive at this point, it's like opening that first door to that brick wall and somebody coming along and patting you on the shoulder and saying, it's okay. I'm sorry that didn't happen. I feel for you. Let me guide you out of this room. You can do everything in your life by yourself. That doesn't mean you have to. But you have more power than anyone in this world will ever lead you to believe, including yourself. Because, as they say, sometimes we are our own worst enemies. And most people are taught that failure is bad. Instead of thinking of failure is life's way of saying, you no longer have to open that door. You've already checked that door. It already is blocked, so it cannot lead you to where you want to be. So now that's one less option you have to worry about. And once you see life in that way and start thinking from a more positive point of view, and you see your failures as learning lessons, you will begin to understand why they continued to keep coming back over and over again when you did not see it in that way. And I always tell people, think of it like school. Let's say you're in 12th grade. What will happen if at the end of the 12th grade you failed all of your courses? You're going to have to repeat 12th grade. Now, let's say you go through 12th grade again and you decide to do the same exact thing as the first time. You don't study. You don't do your homework, you don't take it seriously, and you just show up to show up. At the end of that second attempt at 12th grade, doing the same thing you did the last time, you fail again. What do you think will happen? You're going to have to repeat 12th grade again. Now, how do you get past that? You change your thought process. So you say, all right, the first time I thought I'd breeze by. It didn't happen. I failed, I had to take it over again. Then I was really upset that I didn't get what I wanted, even though I didn't work at it at all, and I failed again. Maybe this time I should really pay attention. Maybe this time I should do the homework. Maybe this time I should take it seriously. And the person, instead of going to party and drink with his friends or her friends, instead of refusing to do the homework or learning anything the teachers were trying to teach, that individual decided to, you know what, I'm going to put in the effort. I'm going to show them that I can do this, or I'm going to show myself I can do this. And what happens when that person passes? Does that person ever have to repeat the 12th grade again? No. So in other words, you will have the same situations happen to you over and over again. But once you learn them, you ever notice all of a sudden those things no longer are necessary in your life, or they don't hold the same meaning, and you can basically just walk over them and move forward in your life? But if you fill yourself with anger and doubt and all the lower negative vibrations in the world, and it's sad that most people don't understand the vibration thing. Everything is moving at different speeds of vibration. Even a rock, when you look at it under an electron microscope and you see it in its molecular structure, there is movement. So vibration is not some new age term. Unfortunately, most people, as soon as they hear that, when they're not into researching a deeper level, will automatically dismiss things, which is their choice. But if they are going to never learn, then they are always going to be repeating that 12th grade. And then it doesn't matter if you pray, it doesn't matter if you get angry, it doesn't matter if you get frustrated, and it definitely doesn't matter if you give up, because you've pretty much guaranteed failure. So the trick is to say, okay, I have failed at something that I want or need or whatever. I've failed at it. What can I do differently to change the outcome to a more positive situation or event? Now, that doesn't guarantee everything. Like, for example, if you have a crush on some guy or some girl, it doesn't matter how hard you work at getting that person if it's not reciprocated. Because you can't force somebody to love you. I mean, people get married for the wrong reasons, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's love involved. So I'm talking more about things that you can do for yourself. And you see in this world, they want the quick fix. They want you to be taking prescription medications. They want you to see counselors. Now, in some circumstances, these things may be beneficial to you, albeit the short term. Because if you spend your whole life on medications and never address what is really inside you, is that really going to be the best benefit way? But the challenging part is to realize it takes hard work. As far as I know, there is no pill that you can swallow that will instantly turn you into the Arnold Schwarzenegger of the 1970s. He had to work, albeit unfortunately using steroids and things, but I don't think his body was 100% because of steroids. I would never promote things like that, because in a way that's kind of cheating. But he still had to work hours every day at the gym, doing the work it took to get him where he was. So it takes effort. And if you think, especially in this government in the United States, they want to give you handouts. They want to give you welfare, which is good for some people, but there are plenty of people that take advantage of it. Because if you had the choice to sit at home, hang out with your friends and party and drink beer and get a welfare check, that would be the same, if not more, than some of the minimum wage jobs you can get out in the working world, working 40 hours a week doing what you hate. It's a no-brainer that most people would choose the welfare. But in the long run, it hurts yourself. Because you're not doing anything to not even contribute to society. Because that should, that's a consolation prize. But what are you doing to help yourself? And people always seek outside influences. Why do you think so many people, when they're depressed, that's the time they tend to pray the most? And those very same people tend to forget that when things are going well. If you are sitting there saying, I'm praying for money so you could pay your bills, if you're not doing anything to increase your chances, if you think you're just going to sit on your couch, make a couple of prayers, and all of a sudden $1 million is going to fall from the sky, you're going to be waiting a very long time. There are always ways. It depends on that muscle in between your ears, your brain. How much are you willing to use it? And what are you willing to use it for? Because there are so many people, and one of the biggest things I noticed about, especially people that tend to be angry and lash out at others for their own personal amusement. And I know one right off the bat, which I'm not going to mention their name, but they come from my comic book channel. And it's not the person that I was talking about before. This is somebody else that pretends to be a friend for a while now. Is when they are very angry, it's usually because they're not in a place where they're happy. Because let's say you've had your moment where you abused somebody or made fun of somebody or attacked somebody. When things were going very well with you, did you have time or even care to bother trying to put somebody else down? So it can also go in the other extreme, where instead of anger, people get depressed. And then they beat themselves up. It's not going to improve your life if you are doing that. And trust me, I was that way a very long time ago when I was a kid. And I'll share a story that I haven't shared in a while. When I was in my teenage years, I was one of those really heavy kids that everybody used to make fun of. And people back then were pretty cruel, and there were no social justice warriors, and there was nobody that was doing anti-bullying. You just had to take it. And people used to make fun of me because I was overweight. And my family was poor. So I wasn't wearing the most expensive shoes, and I wasn't wearing the Tommy Hilfigers of the day clothing. And kids can be cruel, and they will gang up on you. Even friends will do it because there's power in groups. And at one point, I got extremely suicidal. And I was contemplating killing myself. And I was planning about taking a bunch of pills and just going to sleep one night. Now, this is me when I was like 16, 17 years old. And then I got, because I guess at the time, one of the good things is when my parents got divorced, my mother started to date this person that was an alcoholic. So he had lots of pills hidden around the house. I knew where he stored everything. So I took a whole thing of pills. Not take it as in other words, ingesting it, but I took a whole, bottle of them. And my plan was to just, have a nice drink of whatever beverage I was going to have, swallow all the pills, go to bed at night, and never wake up again. And I was laying in bed with the pills in my hand and a glass of whatever on the table next to me, thinking about this before I did it. Because I didn't really want to do it, but when people get bullied enough, a lot of people decide the pain is just not worth continuing. So I am in a place where I know a lot of people have been. I've been there. And here is when I developed my sense of humor. Because at that moment, before I decided to do anything, I pictured myself dead. And I pictured myself being lowered into my grave. Like if for some reason I could see up, even though I was supposedly dead in the grave. And all of the people who cared about me, my mother, my aunts, my sisters, all of my family looking down into the grave where I was, crying. And at that moment I laughed. And most people think, well, that's a weird time to laugh. But I thought, ironically, here I was, so depressed in my life that I was willing to end my life to stop the pain. And even at what would have been the most selfish moment in my life, because that's basically what it is, I was more concerned about hurting those that loved me than ending my own pain. And I said I would never put myself or my family in that position. And that was the day I got my sense of humor. Because I actually laughed a little bit and thought that was kind of funny. How ironic is that? Is I wanted to end my life to end all of that pain. And even at that moment, I was more concerned about other people being hurt by what I was going to do. So I know there are plenty of people out there that have been that way. And that's why, even as close to the beginning of 2017, on the comic book channel that I have, because you guys know I've talked about that a bunch of times, there were plenty of people that for whatever reason decided to gang up on me and make a lot of accusations that were not based on anything. And it was very easy to gang up on me. And there are still people that do it to this day. And back in 2017, in the beginning, around February, I had an argument with, like I said, that one person that we made up on just last night. And I thought that was pretty cool. But even as far as the beginning of 2017, I felt myself still having to defend myself from other people, that bullying thing. So that was always that little, that little twisting of the knife kind of thing that we all have. We all have that one particular thing in our life that can even trigger something from back when we were children or younger. And that's when I stood back and really felt the need to look even deeper. Because a person could help people, but still not 100% help themselves. I know plenty of people that are friends of mine, because being a massage therapist, you start associating me with plenty of people in these kind of fields and things related to it. So I had a lot of clients that were like psychologists, doctors, therapists, and a lot of them would talk all the time about how they were spending their lives helping everybody else, but they were depressed or they were in pain. Because as much as people came to them to hear their problems, they had nobody to talk to because they felt like, well, I'm the therapist, I should be better than that. And they would hold it in and it would eat them up inside. And I think that was something even I had to still learn. So was it any wonder that throughout my lifetime, in specific periods, there would be times where I would be bullied and ganged up on? And even though it was unjustified, because these people were making accusations about me, to this day, I don't even show up and communicate with these people, and they still talk about me, that I used to always have to keep defending myself. Like I had this need to feel like I have to prove myself from these strangers who I'll never meet and who will never mean anything in my life and won't change their mind even if the truth was thrusted in front of them. That it was a wasted energy in my life. And it was like repeating the 12th grade over and over again. Thus always telling you that the teacher can still be the student, and vice versa. So I say this with complete, put it better. I say this with experience, that I know what it's like to hit rock bottom. I mean, I lived with an alcoholic. I've had shotguns to my head. My mother's boyfriend, who to this day doesn't know about it because I never talked about it, when I was 10 years old, right after my parents got divorced and this new boyfriend moved in about a year later, she met him about a year later, and he moved in, he used to put child pornography and things under my bed and hide it there. And as a 10-year-old, the first time you see a VCR tape and you don't know what it is, and you put it in and you see all these adult themes, and you have nobody to talk to, that can mess with somebody's head. But here's where I take something good out of it, because this person, and I'll only say his name is George, this person was probably, hold on a second. Sorry about that. So what I was going to say is this person was probably the worst experience of my life. This person got drunk all the time. This person was never physically abusive, but was mentally abusive, and sometimes that's even worse. And he made it clear he didn't like me for the longest time, because he just didn't ever want to be responsible for somebody else's children. And he was never going to replace my father, so, I wasn't exactly going to be loving. But I will say this, that good things came out of it because I learned to never want to be like how that person was. And I wanted to be the opposite of that person in the way he treated people. Almost to the point where he used to love listening to Bruce Springsteen. That was his idol. And I wanted to be the opposite of him so much I hated Bruce Springsteen only for the fact that he liked it. So what point am I trying to make with this? The point I'm trying to make is sometimes you can have the most evil, the most vindictive, the most hurtful people in your life, and they can be family, close to family, or they can be around you. And it can eat you up inside, it can devastate you, it can destroy you. But the one thing I've noticed in this world, especially with some of the good people I've met on this channel, is that the most caring, loving people that I know of today came from very horrible experiences where they learned how to make things better. In other words, when the world hands you a lemon, you make lemonade. One of the things that I've realized about very caring people, especially those who are caring people because they were hurt so much they never wanted to have anyone else feel what they did, tend, and I'm myself included, hold things in. We always feel like our jobs are to help other people, but we sometimes forget ourselves. And that's something you have to never forget. Because if you hold things inside, you can hold them in for years. You can even hold them in for decades. But eventually they will take your life over. And they will remind you of what you never faced. And that is why a lot of times in our life, whether it's relationships, whether it's situations and events, whatever, it's the reason why things, even with different people, in different locations, tend to happen over and over again. And a lot of people tend to either ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist, move away, and think that's better. You ever have somebody that they were so upset with where they were, they said, you know what, I'm just moving as far away from this place as possible, and they end up having the same things happen in that new region. Because it's not the outside world, it's what's inside that is attracting everything towards us. So locations, at very best, delay it if we don't work on it. Happiness can be achieved once you stop being dependent on other people. Now, obviously, if you're a handicapped person or if you're in an extreme situation where you need other people to help you, that's fine. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that are fully capable of changing their life, and the only thing stopping them is their own mind or their own heart. Because if your heart isn't into something, it doesn't matter who convinces you to do it. You're not going to do it. How many people have gone to alcoholic, like anonymous meetings, only because their family made them do it? And they didn't do it because they wanted to, and it does nothing for them. So, if you notice a pattern in your life where things are repeating over and over again, that's the world saying, you're in 12th grade, you're not doing the research, you're not taking it seriously, and you're going to cut back. So you're going to keep repeating the 12th grade until you figure it out and move on. And some people never get out of 12th grade. Now I'm talking in the 12th grade of life, not actual high school 12th grade. We are all responsible for what we choose to do and don't do. And that is why, even today, there were people that were attacking me for no reason. Because I was watching the live show of the person that, him and I made up last night. He messaged me and apologized and all that stuff. But again, I won't mention the name because that's supposed to be between him and I, but the only reason I bring it up is it was happening during the live show. So it wasn't a private message that was supposed to remain. It was during the live show, so that's why I'm only bringing it up to that extent. But I went to the person's video to watch a live show, and the support gave it a thumbs up. This was the whole thing. And I'm watching the comments scroll by, and there are about 6 or 7 people that were attacking me. Now, here's the thing. The old me would have jumped in and responded, feeling that I would have to defend myself. But because I finally fixed that problem, I had no desire to do that, because my new perspective, in other words, improving what I had, what could I do to myself to improve it, the newer me, the improved version of the problems that I had said, you don't know these people, they don't know you. It doesn't matter what you say, they have formulated their opinions and they find it funny because it's easy to gang up on someone, especially when they don't know they're there. And to give credit, the individual that we made peace with didn't have any part of that. So that shows that person was a man of his word. And that gained me a lot of respect. Now, obviously, he wasn't going to make it a big topic, and I can understand that. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't comment at all, because I knew what would have happened in the comment section because of the people that ganged up on me. And the good part is the old me would have been defensive. The old me would have jumped in and said, oh, see, you're all doing this stuff. The new part of what I fixed to improve myself over this year said there's no need for that. So now, one of the biggest things I want you all to realize is just because you change yourself or improve yourself or see things in different perspectives does not mean that the problems go away. You cannot change other people's thought processes, but you can change how you react to them. So some of those people are going to pretend to be my friends. Some people are just going to continue to make accusations and involve me in things that I have no part of. I can't control that, but what I can control is the fact that I don't let it bother me anymore. And I speak about it just like I'm talking about somebody else's story. So if you have something in your life or someone in your life, whether it's a boss, a family member, a loved one, what have you, that, or even strangers that pick on you or abuse you or treat you bad. And yeah, sorry about the sound. I mean, I have a very good microphone. It's like I said, YouTube messes with my live streams all the time. On my comic book channel, not once do anybody ever complain about the sound. They just love to do that here. So unfortunately, that's YouTube. But if you have a situation in your life where you have some kind of abuse, whether it's mental, physical, whatever, or people just treat you bad, if you change yourself and become a better person, that doesn't mean they're going to stop. Sometimes they might even do it more to test to see if you're really who you say you are. But how you respond to it will never be the same again. There are people in this world who are cruel. There are people in this world that find amusement in hurting others. And very caring people let it affect them. And they absorb it. And a lot of them pretend to say, I can handle it, when they really can't. My thing is, if you can't handle it, let it go, or avoid the situations if you can. But if you hide things and you deny your strengths and weaknesses, and you don't try and improve them, or focus on your more positive aspects, those things are going to keep coming back over and over again with new people, with new scenarios, with new jobs, with new locations. So it all comes down to within. And like I've said in so many videos, if you take life down to its barest points, the world is made of light and held together through magnetism. And when I mean light, I'm not talking about a flashlight. I'm talking about energy. In other words, we're made of atoms. Atoms are made of protons, neutrons, electrons, and even deeper levels from there. It's all energy. It's moving constantly. Even things, like I said before, like a rock, has movement. It's slower movement, and it's movement that's so small you cannot see it, but it's there, make no mistake. And things are held together through magnetism. The stronger the magnetic pull, the more that it comes to it. And that is also how we feel. You will attract not what you think, not what you say, but what you feel. And the problem is many people contradict what they'll say and feel differently. And that's why I say be true to yourself. Because if you cannot face yourself by finding the faults that you need to improve and you deny them, then you could never solve them. So the biggest thing is the hardest. It's doing it on your own. It's looking at yourself and saying, what can I make better? Like I said, don't think of it in a negative way. Say, oh, let me look at the bad things about me. No, think of it in a more positive light, because nobody likes doing negative things. You think of, what can I make better? Because one of the things I used to enjoy when I first became a massage therapist is after a massage, I do like a little questionnaire for my survey thing to get my phone calls on another visit. And I'd say, you know, what did they like about the massage and what could be improved? And sometimes without the forms, I just ask people, especially regular people. Now, as much as I liked what they said I was doing right, that really didn't matter to me after a while because what's right I don't need to improve. And when somebody said, oh, you could work this a little lighter or you need less oils or whatever, I didn't take it as an insult. I took it as, okay, now they've explained to me what I can improve. And once I improve it, then it's no longer an issue. But people are so afraid to hear criticism. Now, I'm not talking about people who just judge you or some stranger that just makes fun of something because they don't agree with it. Like somebody making fun of my sun gazing. If that person is going to be that ignorant and not want to search out what the benefits of the sun does, because without the sun, this world would not exist. That's for them. They have every right to be ignorant. It's a choice. But if we focus on the negativity, if we don't search ourselves and learn and do as much as possible, is it any wonder we don't get what we want? And again, it doesn't guarantee it because you may go through, let's say you want to become a doctor. You may learn everything about being a doctor. You may go to school and get A grades on everything. You might do all the homework, know everything back and forth. And the day you become a doctor and you go into the hospital and you see people throwing up and you realize you can't do it, well, you didn't waste yourself. You learned something that you decided was not what you wanted. So that can happen as well. Don't think that if you put in the hard work, because even if you do all that work, sometimes it's teaching you what you don't really want. That's not a failure. Most people see it that way. But let's say you don't become a doctor because you just can't handle patients. You could do the schoolwork, you could learn everything, and that was the easy part. But because of you going through that schooling, you ended up meeting the guy or girl of your dreams. Something good can come out of that. Or maybe the day you finally decided that you're going to walk out of that hospital because you couldn't handle it, all of a sudden, maybe, you run into somebody who gives you the opportunity of a lifetime. You never know what's around the corner. And unfortunately, most people teach you that the future is scary because it's unknown. And it can be just as positive as it is negative. People are so afraid of, oh, I don't know what tomorrow brings, instead of saying, I'm excited to see what tomorrow brings. It's all about your perspective. And unfortunately, the higher up you are, the more people will hate you or resent you. How many people hate somebody just because they're successful? There are plenty of people that say, like, for example, I picked Arnold Schwarzenegger. How many people would hate him or make fun of him because he doesn't talk like the typical American? Because he wasn't born in America, first of all. Or, like, for example, Lou Ferrigno. One of the biggest things people made fun of him in the 70s and 80s, and probably even till to this day that people even know him, is the fact that he kind of had this slur speech. But if you actually go back, you'd realize that he actually had vocal problems, and he actually had to train really hard to be able to speak the way he did. But people still made fun of him. There are going to be people that no matter what you do are not going to like you. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to make things up about you. The idea is to not let it get you to the point where it changes what you do. And that was one of the things even I had to learn. And it will keep coming back to you until you get it. The problem is, like I was saying with those doors, if you open a door and it doesn't lead you out, and your goal is to leave the room, you failed. Most people give up after that time. Don't ever give up. You know the day you give up is the day you take your last breath, because then you have no choice. But until then, you do the best that you can. Do it for yourself. Because everybody who loves you will be there for you regardless of if you are at the highest point in the mountain or you're just getting to the base. The problem is we worry about all the people that don't really matter to us. We allow it to affect us. And unfortunately, with the use of the internet, you can have people all around the world who you'll never have met and probably never will meet that can just go to you and say mean things about you just because they can. I remember at one point in my karaoke business, because not only am I a massage therapist, I'm also a karaoke DJ. Been doing that since 1999. And at one point, I used to have, the books. When you go to a bar, if you've ever gone to karaoke, you know that the karaoke DJ will put out a book that has all the list of their songs. At one point, I had 7 books. I'm now down to 2. The reason being is people stole 5 of my books. Now, what would be the use for anybody else? Because even if that person was a karaoke DJ, unless that person had all the music I had, that book is useless. So they did it just because they could. And that's why one of the biggest problems I had is I felt like I had to explain myself and prove to these people that didn't really matter, that I wasn't what they were saying I was. And some people, they just didn't care because it was just fun to be mean. And it was fun to have other people on their side to be mean with and have someone else to laugh at, because in their lives they probably had plenty of people laughing at them. And those are the people who are still repeating the 12th grade and never realizing they have to actually do the work if you want to move on. And in that aspect, I went from being angry at those people to feeling sorry for those people. Because in the end, it is all a choice. And that is one of the biggest things I want to teach people. You have the choice to do the right thing, the wrong thing, or nothing. But there are always consequences. And even if you do the right thing, it does not guarantee that what you thought you worked so hard to get will be what you actually end up with. Or maybe you change your mind. But it's like, for example, eating a certain fruit for the first time. You won't know that you like it or hate it until you try it. And if you try it and it makes you throw up and it's the worst taste you've ever had, and you regret the fact that you ever put it in your mouth, at least you would be smart enough to never do it again. You learned through a bad experience. Like I've said before, if you were a young kid and your mother or father kept telling you, don't ever put your hands on the stove because you'll burn yourself, it doesn't matter what they say. I'm sure at one point we've all burned our hands on the stove. The dumb ones keep doing it. But yet we can't sit there and say 20, 30, 40 years later, or even 5 minutes later, oh, woe is me, I burned my hand. You learn to say, okay, that was dumb. I should never do that again. Well, hello, you just learned something. And you've now bettered your life. Because just imagine if you spent every day burning your hand. How useless would your hand be after a while? So you learn through that painful experience on how to improve your life by learning what not to do. Not everything in life you learn is what to do. Sometimes it's what not to do. It's not always teaching you what you'll like. Sometimes it's telling you what you won't like. But once you realize you don't like something, it's kind of silly to keep going after it. And that happens a lot even in relationships or with the type of jobs you pick. Hardly anybody is stuck. And that was one thing I always said. Yes, I am not going to have the wealth of Donald Trump, but I am also not going to be some homeless person out on the street begging for food either. I will always find a way to put food on the table. It's all about effort. It's all about challenge. It's all about opportunity. It's all about hopefulness. And there are plenty of times where I'll feel defeated or I'll be angry. And that is okay because they are emotions. There are going to be times where you're going to be let down. You're going to be hurt. You're going to be sad. You're going to want to give up. And heck, sometimes you actually do. But if you get back up again and continue where you left off, you will always get yourself back on track. And that's the most important thing. And that's why this channel is so important to me over the years and how I've progressed. Now, like I said, said, not for nothing. Kind of attacking angry. That's a choice. And the only reason I even bring it up is to show people that listen to this that I understand or understand a lot of people and I use my issues as examples. And you notice throughout this whole conversation, I stayed pretty much even tone. I didn't get angry when I talk about the bad things. I didn't sound sad for people who feel sorry for me. I just spoke about it like it was just reading out of a book. And I was reading somebody else's story. And that's when you know you've moved on. That when it's something at one point could have devastated you or hurt you or made you angry, now becomes something that you can just talk about like you're just talking about in the mailbox. In other words, it isn't that much of a big deal. That's when you know you know that you effectively tested. Because like I said, I went to the person's live show tonight and didn't come to us. Gave it a nice thumbs up in the beginning, watched, and I saw that the person that we talked about in the other video yesterday, excuse me, he was a person I was wondering. He didn't say anything mean at all, but the people in the comment section, even though none of them knew I was there, because I didn't say a word, all at one point started attacking me and making him jump at it. And the best part is, I chose to not say anything, even though that little demon on my shoulder said, you know what, you should step in, and you should say something, say, oh, I've been listening all this time. Well, who's that going to do? So we all get tested, and that's something that is very challenging, because you will break down, you will fail, you will do things, and you want to never do it again, or think you just made it over the top, only to fall back down again. If you think of it as a challenge to say, hey, somebody's testing me to see if I really want this bad enough, and you'll get yourself back up again, or you'll handle a situation in a way that you never did before. That is what growth is all about. And then you'll see the person that you love more than anything who abused you or put you down, or the employment where the boss took advantage of you, or whatever situation happened, no longer affects you the same way again. Yeah, Miss Vivian C, she's writing your mic is chopped up and faded. Like I said, my wife just bought me blue ice on really expensive microphones. It's not my microphone. It's the live stream because YouTube messes with my channel. I mean, I have almost 41,000 subscribers. I've never had more than 35. Actually, no, I won't go to 50, but I've never had more than 50 people watch one of my live shows ever. So they do everything they can to make it so people don't listen. Unfortunately, because like I said, my comic book channel never wants to subscribe at all. So they like to mess with things. So with that being said, I'm going to end this video. This is another hour-long video. And see, this is the beautiful thing. I hope what I say, even one thing I say, helps somebody. But you know what? Not only does it help other people, it even helps me. So it shows that we are always going to learn. We're always going to grow. We are always going to seek. And I'm sorry about the microphone, but like I said, it's a brand new expensive microphone. It's not me. There's nothing I can do about it. Blame YouTube because they love doing this. So anyway, everybody's saying it's bad sound, so I'm just going to end it right here. And I want to thank everybody for listening. And unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about them messing with the audio. So hopefully this helped. And I want to thank people for listening. And I hope you all have a great night and see things in a better light. Peace out.